The cold was the first thing Park felt. It was deep inside his bones, like he had been frozen solid for 100 years. His eyes opened slowly, and everything was blurry. Red lights were flashing everywhere. Alarms were screaming so loud that his head hurt. Something was very wrong. Tried to move his arms, but they felt like heavy stones. The glass cover of his pod had a long crack running through it. He pushed against it with weak hands, and it opened with a hiss of cold air. He fell out of the pod and landed hard on the metal floor. His body was shaking. His muscles had forgotten how to work properly. He was supposed to sleep for 40 more years. The colony ship Starbound Hope was carrying 3,000 people to a new planet called New Eden. It was supposed to be a peaceful journey through the stars. Had signed up because he was tired of war. He had spent 10 years as a combat engineer in the Pacific Territorial Wars, building bridges and clearing bombs. He wanted a quiet life. He wanted to build things instead of destroying them. But the universe had other plans. The ship's computer voice spoke in broken pieces. Warning, hull breach, decks 7 through 12, hostile contact detected, crew casualties at 93%, emergency protocol active. His heart went cold. 93% casualties. That meant almost everyone was dead. He forced himself to stand up. His legs were shaking badly, but he made them work. The bay was filled with hundreds of pods all arranged in neat rows. Walked past them slowly, looking at each one. Most of the pods were dark. The small lights that should be green were not glowing at all. Dead. They were all dead. He found a few pods with green lights in the emergency section at the back of the bay. Only 47 out of 3,000. Felt sick to his stomach. One of the pods opened with a loud sound. A woman fell out, coughing and gasping for air. Blood was running down her face from a cut on her forehead. Caught her before she hit the ground. "Easy, easy," he said. "I have you." The woman looked up at him with frightened eyes. He recognized her from the pre-flight meetings. Her name was, and she was the ship's chief medical officer. She was about 35 years old with short black hair and a kind face. But right now, that face was filled with terror. "They came," she whispered. "They came through the walls, they took people, they killed people, I saw it. I saw it before I went into." "Who came?" asked. "What are you talking about?" Grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "Aliens. Real aliens. They call themselves They have been hunting human ships for years. Nobody knows because nobody survives. They take us. They harvest us, like we are animals." Felt the world spin around him. Aliens. Hostile aliens that hunted humans. It sounded like a bad movie, but the fear in his eyes was very real. "How do you know this?" he asked. The ship's computer found their communications before they jammed everything. They have been doing this to human colonies for decades. We are not the first. We will not be the last. Helped her sit against a wall. He found a medical kit nearby and cleaned the cut on her head. His hands were steady, even though his mind was racing. Years of war had taught him to stay calm when everything was falling apart. "How many of them are there?" he asked. "I do not know. Maybe 200, maybe more. They have a ship attached to ours. They are going through every deck, taking everyone they find." Looked at the security screens on the wall. Most of them were broken or showing static, but a few still worked. What he saw made his blood turn cold. The aliens were tall, maybe 7 feet high. They looked like giant insects with hard shells covering their bodies. They had 4 arms and 2 legs. Their heads had large black eyes and mouths full of sharp teeth. They moved fast, much faster than humans. On the screen, watched 3 of them drag a screaming woman down a corridor. She was alive. She was begging for help, but there was no one to help her. Something changed inside at that moment. Something dark and old woke up in his chest. He had seen terrible things in the war. He had done terrible things to survive. He had buried that part of himself when he signed up for the colony mission. He had wanted to be a builder, not a killer. But these creatures were hunting his people. They were taking humans like cattle, and they were going to pay for it. The other survivors said, "Can we wake them up?" Shook her head. "The systems are damaged. Waking them too fast could kill them. They need at least 6 hours for safe revival." "Then we have 6 hours to solve this problem." Stared at him. "What are you talking about? There are 2 of us against hundreds of those things. We cannot fight them. We need to hide until help comes." "Help is not coming," said quietly. "You said it yourself. Nobody survives. Nobody knows about them because they leave no witnesses. If we hide, we die. If we run, we die. The only way we survive is if they die first." "That is insane. You are one man." Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I was a combat engineer for 10 years. I know how to build things. I also know how to break things. And right now, I am going to break every single one of those aliens." He helped to her feet and led her to the emergency bunker on Deck 3. It was a reinforced room designed to survive anything. He sealed her inside with emergency supplies and the other survivors who were slowly waking up. "Stay here," he told her through the door. "Do not open this for anyone except me. If I do not come back in 12 hours, assume I am dead and wait for rescue." What if rescue never comes? Did not answer that question. He turned away and walked toward the armory. The ship's computer guided him with broken words and flickering lights. He passed bodies on the way, crew members who had been killed in their sleep, colonists who had tried to run, children who had never had a chance. Each body made the fire in his chest burn hotter. When he reached the armory, he did not take the guns. They had armor that could stop bullets. He needed something different, something they would not expect. He walked past the armory to the cargo holds instead. There he found mining explosives, welding torches, chemical tanks, and rolls of monofilament wire sharp enough to cut through metal. Smiled again. It was not a nice smile. The hunt was about to begin, but they had made one terrible mistake. They thought they were the hunters. They did not know that they had just woken up something far more dangerous than themselves. They had woken up a human with nothing left to lose, spent 12 hours preparing for war. He did not sleep. He did not rest. He worked with the focus of a man who knew that every minute mattered. The ship's computer, which he called Arya, helped him as much as it could. Its voice was broken and its systems were damaged, but it could still show him where the aliens were moving. They had taken control of decks 7 through 12. They had set up their own atmosphere in those sections because they could not breathe human air very well. They moved in hunting packs of 6, sweeping through the ship corridor by corridor. They were looking for survivors. They were looking for more humans to take back to their ship. Watched them on the security cameras and learned everything he could. They were fast and strong. Their armor was thick. Their weapons shot balls of hot plasma that could burn through metal. A normal human would have no chance against them in a fair fight. So was not going to fight fair. He started by venting the atmosphere on decks 6 through 10. He opened all the airlocks and let the air rush out into space. They could survive in low oxygen for short periods, but it made them slow and weak. It also forced them to stay in the sections they had already filled with their own air. Now they were trapped in a smaller area and knew exactly where they were. His first weapon was simple but deadly. Monofilament wire was designed for cutting asteroids. It was thinner than a human hair but stronger than steel. When stretched tight, it could slice through almost anything. Strung hundreds of meters of wire through the corridors on Deck 7 at different heights, some at knee level, some at neck level, some crisscrossing in patterns that would be impossible to see in the dim emergency lighting. Then he waited. The first hunting pack came through Cargo Bay 7 about 2 hours later. There were 6 of them, moving in their usual formation. The leader was in front, with 2 flanking on each side and 1 in the rear. They clicked and hissed to each other in their strange language. Stood in the center of the bay with his hands raised above his head. He looked like a man who had given up, a man who was surrendering. The leader made a sound that might have been laughter. It walked toward slowly, enjoying the moment. The other 5 followed, spreading out to surround their prey. They never saw the wires. The leader walked into a wire stretched at neck height. It cut through the alien's throat like a hot knife through butter. Black blood sprayed across the deck. The alien fell, still trying to understand what had happened. 2 more died in the next 3 seconds. One hit a wire at the knee and fell forward into another wire that took off its head. The other ran into a crisscross pattern that sliced it into pieces. The remaining 3 finally understood that something was wrong. They raised their weapons, looking for the threat, but was already moving. He had spent years in war zones learning how to be invisible. He rolled behind a cargo container and pressed a button on the small device in his hand. The mining charges he had buried under the deck plating exploded all at once. The blast killed the remaining 3 instantly. It also blew a hole in the deck and sent fire shooting up toward the ceiling. Had positioned himself behind reinforced cargo containers that protected him from the worst of it. He still felt the heat on his face and the force of the blast in his chest. When the smoke cleared, 6 were dead, was alive. He did not celebrate. He did not feel joy. He simply moved to his next position and started preparing his next trap. There were still almost 200 aliens on the ship. He had a lot of work to do. The second hunting pack found the remains of the first about an hour later. They made sounds of confusion and anger, watched them on the security cameras as they examined the bodies. They did not understand what had happened. Their technology was supposed to be better than human technology. Their warriors were supposed to be stronger than human soldiers. How had a single human killed 6 of them? Answered their question by killing 6 more. This time he used the ship's fire suppression system. He had discovered something interesting while reading the communications. Their respiratory system was very sensitive to certain chemicals. The foam that the ship used to put out fires was not harmful to humans, but it was like breathing acid. He lured the second pack into a sealed corridor and then flooded it with foam. The aliens screamed and clawed at their own faces as the chemicals burned their lungs. They died slowly and painfully. Watched it happen on the cameras without any expression on his face. 12 down, about 190 to go. They started to get careful after that. They stopped sending small packs and started moving in larger groups. They swept the corridors with their weapons, burning anything that looked suspicious. They thought they were dealing with multiple attackers. They could not believe that one human was doing all this damage. Adapted. He stopped using stationary traps and started moving. He would hit a group, kill a few aliens, and then disappear before they could respond. He used the maintenance tunnels and air vents to move through the ship unseen. He set up decoys and false trails that led into dead ends. By hour 20, he had killed 37. He had been wounded 3 times. A plasma bolt had burned a line across his left shoulder. A warrior had slashed his leg with its claws before he cut its throat. Another had smashed him into a wall hard enough to crack 2 of his ribs. But he did not stop. He could not stop. Every time he felt tired, he remembered the bodies in the corridors, the children who had died in their sleep, the woman he had seen being dragged away on the security cameras. The had made this war, was going to end it. Contacted him through the emergency communicator he had given her. Her voice was worried. You need to rest. You need medical attention. You are pushing yourself too hard. I will rest when they are all dead, replied. You cannot kill 200 aliens by yourself. It is not possible. Watch me. He cut the communication and went back to work. The next hunting group was moving through Deck 9. They were being very careful, checking every corner and shadow. They had learned to fear the darkness of the ship. But they had not learned to fear it enough. Dropped from an air vent directly onto the back of the rear guard. He drove a sharpened piece of hull plating through the alien skull before it could make a sound. Then he grabbed its plasma weapon and opened fire on the rest of the group. 3 more died before they could turn around. The remaining 2 tried to fight back but was already gone. He had slipped back into the vent and was crawling through the darkness toward his next target. They were beginning to understand something terrible. They were not hunting humans anymore. A human was hunting them, and he was very, very good at it. Commander had conquered 11 different species in his long career. He had led the harvest of 47 human colony ships. He knew humans very well. They were weak creatures. They were soft, slow, and easy to kill. They screamed when they were hurt. They begged for their lives before they died. They were perfect prey. But this one was different. Stood on the bridge of his command ship, the Hollow Hunger, and watched the reports come in from his warriors. Each report was worse than the last. Hunting Pack 3 was gone. All 6 warriors dead, cut to pieces by some kind of wire trap. Hunting Pack 7 had found their bodies and then died when the deck collapsed under them. Pack 12 had actually seen the human before they were killed. The survivor's last transmission had been just one word: monster. Clicked his mandibles together in frustration. This was not possible. One human could not do this much damage. His warriors were the best in the Dominion. They had conquered entire planets. They had crushed armies. How could one small human be defeating them? He pulled up the security recordings from the human ship. The footage was poor quality because the ship's systems were damaged, but he could see enough. He could see the human moving through the corridors like a shadow. The human never walked in the open. He used the walls, the ceiling, the maintenance tunnels. He appeared suddenly, killed quickly, and then vanished again. In one recording, watched the human take a plasma bolt directly to the shoulder. The wound would have killed most humans instantly. This one barely slowed down. He kept moving forward, grabbed a warrior by the head, and smashed its skull against the wall until it stopped moving. In another recording, the human walked through fire. An explosion had set an entire corridor ablaze. Any sensible creature would have run away. But the human walked through the flames like they did not matter. His clothes were burning. His skin was burning. And still he kept coming, killing 2 more before finally putting out the fire on his body. Felt something he had not felt in a very long time. He felt fear. This was not normal human behavior. Humans were supposed to run and hide. They were supposed to give up when the situation became hopeless. They were not supposed to fight like this. They were not supposed to be able to take so much pain and keep going. One of his officers approached carefully. The officer was afraid to speak, but he had important news. "Commander, we have lost contact with the sweep teams on Deck 8, all of them." Closed his eyes. "How many is that now?" 67 warriors confirmed dead. Another 20 missing and presumed dead. We have lost almost half our boarding force to a single enemy. And we still have not caught him. "No, Commander. He knows the ship better than we do. He uses the environment against us. He sets traps that we cannot see. Our technology cannot track him because he does not carry any electronic devices. He is like a ghost." Turned to face his officer. "Then send the elite guard, all 20 of them. No more hunting packs. We will overwhelm him with numbers and skill." The officer looked uncertain. The elite guard for one human. "This is not a normal human. Send them now." The elite guard was the finest fighting force in the Dominion. Each member had killed at least 100 enemies in personal combat. They wore the best armor. They carried the best weapons. They had never failed a mission. They entered the human ship with complete confidence. They spread out in perfect formation, covering every angle. They used thermal vision to scan the darkness. They checked every corner, every shadow, every potential hiding spot. The human was waiting for them in Cargo Bay 3. He stood in the open this time, not hiding. He was covered in blood, though most of it was not his own. He had a plasma rifle taken from a dead warrior in one hand. In the other hand, he held a long blade made from sharpened hull metal. His eyes were cold and empty, like the eyes of a dead man. The leader of the elite guard laughed. This human was brave, but bravery meant nothing against 20 of the best warriors in the galaxy. He gave the order to attack. The fight lasted 11 minutes. Moved like nothing they had ever seen. He did not fight like a soldier. He fought like a wild animal, using every part of his body as a weapon. He ducked under plasma bolts that should have killed him. He used the elite guards' own bodies as shields against their comrades. He threw his blade through one warrior's eye and then caught a second blade thrown at him, using it to kill 2 more. When his plasma rifle ran out of power, he used it as a club. When the club broke, he used his fists. When one arm was broken, he used his other arm. He just kept coming, kept killing, kept refusing to die. The last elite guard tried to run, caught him from behind and broke his neck with his bare hands. 20 of the finest warriors, the best of the best, all dead in 11 minutes. Watched the footage in complete silence. His officers stood around him, too afraid to speak. They had just witnessed something that should not be possible. Their unbeatable warriors had been beaten by one wounded human. "What is he?" one officer whispered. Did not answer. He was thinking about all the humans he had harvested over the years. Thousands of them taken from ships just like this one. They had all seemed so weak, so helpless. But what if they had all been capable of this? What if every human had this monster inside them, just waiting to come out? The thought made his blood turn cold. He gave an order that he had never given before in his entire career. He told his remaining warriors to retreat back to the Hollow Hunger. They would seal the connection between the ships and leave. The harvest was not worth this cost. But it was too late. Had already found the docking connection between the 2 ships. He was already on his way to the command ship. He was not interested in letting them escape. He was going to kill every single one of them. And then he was going to send a message to the rest of the galaxy about what happened when you hunted humans, walked through the docking tunnel that connected the 2 ships. His body was broken in more ways than he could count. His left arm was shattered below the elbow. 3 ribs were cracked. Burns covered 40% of his skin. He had lost so much blood that a normal person would have passed out hours ago. But was not a normal person anymore. He was something else now. Something that ran on rage and pain, and the faces of the dead colonists burned into his memory. He had not slept in 36 hours. He had not eaten in longer than that. The only thing keeping him moving was stimulant shots he had taken from the ship's medical supplies and the cold fire burning in his chest. 112 dead, but there were more on the command ship. The ship's computer had told him there were at least 63 enemies remaining. Warriors, technicians, officers, and somewhere on that ship there were 12 human colonists who had been taken for what they called processing. Did not want to think about what processing meant. He just wanted to get those people back. The ship was different from the human ship. The corridors were wider and taller, built for the aliens' larger bodies. The walls were covered in strange symbols that might have been writing or decoration. The air smelled wrong, like rotting plants and something chemical. Emergency lights cast everything in a sickly green color. Arya's voice crackled in his ear through a small communicator. The ship's computer had spent the battle hacking into systems. It could now see parts of their ship and could guide toward his targets. 63 hostiles remaining. 12 human life signs detected on Deck 4. Most enemy forces are gathered on the bridge on Deck 1. They have sealed the doors and are preparing to disconnect from our ship. They are trying to run, said. His voice was rough and tired. Yes, Commander has ordered full retreat. Allowed himself a small, cold smile. They are afraid. Based on their communications, yes. They have never experienced losses like this. They do not understand what is happening. Several officers are suggesting that you are not human at all, but some kind of demon or supernatural creature. Good, let them be afraid. Fear makes people stupid. Moved through the corridors of the ship like a ghost. The aliens had not expected him to board their vessel so quickly. Most of their remaining warriors were on the bridge with the commander. Only a few guards were scattered through the rest of the ship. He killed them one by one, quietly, efficiently. He used shadows and surprise, striking before they could raise an alarm, a knife across the throat, a blow to the back of the head, hands around a neck, squeezing until the struggling stopped. By the time he reached Deck 4, there were only 49 left alive. The 12 human colonists were being held in a large room that looked like a cargo bay. They were locked in cages made of some kind of energy field. Most of them were unconscious. A few were awake and crying. They had been through terrible things, could see the marks of claws on their bodies. 2 guards stood watching the prisoners, killed them both before they could call for help. Then he found the control panel and shut off the energy cages. The colonists were too weak to walk on their own. Found a young woman who was still conscious enough to understand him. Her name was Sora, and she had been a teacher before the attack. Her eyes were wide with terror, but she listened as explained what she needed to do. There is a shuttle bay on Deck 3. Take everyone there and wait for me. If I do not come back in 1 hour, take the shuttle and fly back to our ship. Doctor is in the emergency bunker. She will help you. Sora grabbed his arm. You are going to the bridge. There are at least 40 of them there. You cannot fight that many. I have fought more than that already. You are going to die. Looked at her with those cold, empty eyes. Maybe, but a lot of them are going to die first. Now go, get these people to safety. He watched her help the other colonists toward the shuttle bay, and then he turned toward the bridge. His body screamed at him to stop. Every muscle was torn. Every bone felt like it was made of glass. He could barely see through the blood that kept dripping into his eyes from a cut on his forehead. But he did not stop. He could not stop, not until this was finished. The bridge was sealed behind heavy doors made of some kind of metal alloy. Did not try to break through them. Instead, he went to the ship's main power conduit and started cutting wires. Within minutes, the entire deck went dark. Inside the bridge, Commander and his remaining crew waited in the darkness. They had thermal vision. They had superior senses. They had every advantage. But the darkness was not their friend anymore. The darkness belonged to Now. He came through an air vent in the ceiling. He dropped directly into the middle of the officers and started killing before he even hit the ground. His blade moved so fast that it was just a blur of metal in the dim emergency lighting. Bodies fell around him like leaves in autumn. They tried to fight back. They fired their weapons, but they hit each other as often as they hit him. They swung their claws, but he was never where they expected him to be. He moved through them like water, flowing around their attacks and striking at their weak points. In 3 minutes, 27 officers were dead. The remaining warriors formed a circle around Commander. They were the last line of defense. 12 warriors, all armed with the best weapons they had. They opened fire at the same time, filling the air with plasma bolts. Grabbed a dead officer's body and used it as a shield. The plasma bolts burned through the corpse, but they did not touch him. He charged forward, still holding the burning body in front of him, and crashed into the defensive line. The fight was brutal and short. Killed 3 warriors with his blade before it broke. He killed 2 more with his bare hands. The remaining 7 overwhelmed him with numbers, pinning him to the ground. Their claws tore into his flesh. Their fists hammered his broken body. But it hidden a mining charge in his belt. A small one, just powerful enough for what he needed. He triggered it. The explosion killed all 7 warriors instantly. It also threw across the room and into a wall. He slid down to the floor, barely conscious. His ears were ringing. His vision was going dark at the edges. But he was still alive, and Commander was the only left standing. Looked at the human with something like respect. This creature had killed over 100 of his warriors. He had destroyed the elite guard. He had fought through impossible odds to reach this moment. "What are you?" asked again, the same question his warriors had asked before they died. Pulled himself to his feet. He could only use one arm now. His legs were barely working. But he found a broken blade on the floor and picked it up. He walked toward the commander slowly, step by painful step. "I am just a man," said, "just a human, one of billions." He drove the blade through his chest and twisted it. "And we do not forgive." Fell, the last of the boarding force was dead. Stood alone on the bridge of the enemy ship, surrounded by the bodies of his enemies. Then his legs finally gave out and everything went dark. Woke up in a hospital bed 3 weeks later. The ceiling above him was white and clean. The air smelled like medicine and flowers. For a long moment, he did not know where he was or how he had gotten there. Then space appeared above him, and everything came flooding back. "Welcome back," she said softly. Her eyes were red from crying, but she was smiling. "We thought we lost you. Your heart stopped 4 times during surgery." Tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. Gave him water through a straw and waited patiently while he drank. "The colonists," he finally managed to say, "the 12 from the ship. All alive. Sora led them to the shuttle just like you told her. They made it back to our ship. Everyone is safe now." Closed his eyes. Safe. The word felt strange in his mind. He had not felt safe in a long time. Continued talking, filling him in on everything that had happened. The colony ship Starbound Hope had managed to limp into the New Eden system with 47 colonists, 1 critically wounded engineer, and a captured command ship in tow. The ship had been full of data about their operations, their technology, and their plans. It was the most important intelligence find in human history. The news had spread across human space within days. A single man had fought off an alien invasion. A single man had killed over 100 alien warriors and captured their ship. It sounded like something from a movie or a legend, but it was real, and the video evidence proved it. Arya had recorded everything, every fight, every trap, every moment of impossible battle. The footage was supposed to be classified. It was supposed to stay secret for security reasons. But someone had leaked it. Now everyone in human space had seen Park walk through fire. They had seen him fight 20 elite warriors alone and win. They had seen him refuse to die no matter how badly he was hurt. They had seen what a human being could do when pushed to the absolute limit. The effect was like throwing a match into a barrel of gunpowder. Humanity had always believed it was alone in the universe. Then it had discovered and everyone had been terrified. An alien species that hunted humans like animals, that had been attacking colonies for decades without anyone knowing. The fear had been overwhelming. But then they saw the footage and the fear turned into something else, something dangerous. 3 months after the attack, the Human Defense Coalition was formed. Every human government in the galaxy came together for the first time in history. They pooled their resources, their technology, their military forces. They started building warships based on the technology captured from the vessel. They trained soldiers using the tactics that had developed during his impossible fight. And they sent a message to the Dominion. The message was simple. It included all of Arya's footage from the Starbound Hope incident, every camera angle, every death, every moment of one wounded human destroying an entire invasion force. Along with the footage, there was text. To the Dominion and any species considering hostile action against humanity, the man you see in this footage was not a soldier. He was an engineer, a builder. He had been asleep for 12 years when your forces attacked. He was alone. He was wounded. He was facing impossible odds. He killed 118 of your warriors in 41 hours. We have billions more like him. We recommend you reconsider your expansion plans. Humanity does not forgive. Humanity does not forget. And humanity, as you have now learned, does not surrender. This is your only warning. The Dominion never responded to the message. But within 1 year, all ships had retreated from human space. Their harvesting operations stopped completely. The colonies they had been watching were left alone. Other alien species took note as well. They had been one of the most feared powers in the galaxy. If humans could destroy them so completely, what else could humans do? The answer was, no one wanted to find out. Spent 4 months in the hospital recovering from his injuries. The doctors said it was a miracle that he was alive at all. His body had been broken in dozens of ways, but humans were good at surviving. That was perhaps their greatest strength. When he was finally released, he went back to engineering. He helped design the defensive systems for 12 colony worlds. He taught at the new military academy, showing young soldiers how to think like he had thought during the battle, how to use their environment, how to never give up. 3 years after the attack, he married. She had stayed by his side through all of his recovery. She had seen the monster he could become, and she had seen the man he truly was. She loved both parts of him. They had 2 children, a boy named and a girl named, taught them how to build things and how to fix things. He did not teach them how to fight. He hoped they would never need to know. Reporters came to interview him sometimes. They wanted to hear the story from his own mouth. They wanted to understand how he had done the impossible. Always gave them the same answer. I just did what anyone would do. I protected my people. I refused to give up. There is nothing special about that. The reporters would argue with him. They would point out that he had killed over 100 alien warriors single-handedly. They would show him the statistics, the footage, the impossible facts. Nobody else could have done what he did. But would just shake his head. You are wrong. Any human could have done it. We all have that strength inside us. We just do not use it until we have no other choice. Maybe he was being humble. Maybe he truly believed what he was saying. Humanity never knew for sure. But perhaps that was the most terrifying thing of all. Because if was telling the truth, then every human in the galaxy was capable of becoming what he had become. Every single one of the billions of humans spread across the stars had that same monster sleeping inside them, that same refusal to die, that same cold, unstoppable will. They had learned this lesson the hard way. Other species learned it from watching the footage. And slowly, carefully, the galaxy began to treat humanity with a new kind of respect. Not because humans were the strongest, not because they had the best technology, but because when you pushed a human into a corner, when you threatened what they loved, when you gave them no way out, they became something more than flesh and blood. They became survivors. And survivors, as the universe was learning, were the most dangerous things in existence. Park lived a quiet life after the war. He built bridges and homes and schools. He raised his children and loved his wife. He was a gentle man, kind to strangers and generous with his time. But sometimes, late at night, would see him staring out the window at the stars, and she would know that he was remembering the fire and the blood, remembering the hunt, remembering what he had become when there was no other choice. The monster was still there, sleeping inside him, and it would wake up again if it ever needed to. That was what it meant to be human. That was why the galaxy had learned to be afraid.